Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Waupaca Area Public Library Lunch and Learn for November 2013. A nice crowd today. I'm so glad that you're here with our community partners to talk about eating smart in Waupaca and what that's meant to us for the last couple of years as we've visited area grocery stores and restaurants. We have a couple of experts here that are going to let us know what those results are and what Eating Smart Waupaca is all about. There are a few of you that are still getting your lunch. We'll let you do that while we get started. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, can we hear me back there? No. So what am I doing wrong with this? I have it on. Now can you hear me in the back?
I think maybe if you step up to the microphone. There we go.
Now can you hear me in the back? Nobody can hear me. Okay, so what are we doing wrong with this?
I think just step close to
But
this.
he wants this.
Yeah, but I think he'll still be able to hear.
Okay. Do I need to talk still into the microphone? Now can we hear? Yes, now we can hear me. I'm Beth Hall. I'm with the Waupaca County Nutrition Activity or NUACT Coalition in our communities for Waupaca County, and we were the ones that were sponsoring our WES or Waupaca Eating Smart program. I want to introduce our main speakers for the day, and they both came up from Madison to visit with us and share the results of our program. First we have Dr. Ana Martinez Donate. There we go. She's an associate professor at the Department of Population Health Sciences at UW-Madison. She does research and teaching on health promotion and community health. Her research interests include HIV prevention, tobacco control, cancer screening, health literacy, and obesity prevention, hence our interest here. Her work focuses on determinants of health-related behaviors and the development and evaluation of community-based interventions for both disease prevention and health promotion. She is our principal investigator for this project. You'll hear them mention ANUSI, which is the main name for our project, and that is one of our many acronyms that we use. That one is assessing and improving the nutrition environment in Wisconsin communities. Our version of this overall is our Waupaca Eating Smart. Josie Golimbieski, okay, is a second-year MPH or Master Public Health and Nutrition Dietetics student. She has, with the UW-Madison as well, she has interests in public health nutrition and maternal and child health. She's currently serving as our project manager for our ANUSI project. So I'm going to turn the bulk of the program over to them. I'm going to sneak in here and there. And then please stay around at 1 because we also have some speakers that were some of our principal businesses working on our West project. So.
Let's see. Can you hear me in the back?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth, for that introduction. It's about our pleasure to be here today sharing some of the results of this project that we have been working on for the last 3 years, I guess. So, this is the outline for today's presentation. We will talk about the specific aims of this project, what we were trying to accomplish. I will give you a little bit of rationale on what motivated the project. I will talk also about the study design, or actually Josie is going to be explaining how we evaluated the intervention. We will describe what the intervention was like, and that's going to be actually Beth really mostly describing it. We will go over the results of our evaluation and then summarize it and talk about next steps, what we are doing next. Okay, so this project really wanted to improve the nutrition environment in Wisconsin restaurants and stores. And when we say improve, what we mean is we wanted to increase the availability, visibility, and appeal of healthy foods in restaurants and stores. We also wanted to improve the attitudes, the knowledge, and skills among the owners and consumers of these establishments. We wanted to try to shift consumer consumption patterns to healthier foods. And finally, we wanted to increase community capacity for obesity prevention so that by the time we're done with this particular project, capacity has been built and the community itself and the community members can continue taking on additional efforts and continue promoting healthy eating in the community. So a little bit of rationale. Why are we doing this? So as you probably know, if you're just paying any attention, we have really alarming rates of obesity and related health problems in the US and really much of the developed world. It's actually also becoming a problem in the developing countries. So right now in the US, about 2 out of 3 people, adults, are overweight or obese, and 1 out of 3 is obese. And as you know, there is a host array of health problems that are associated with obesity: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, certain types of cancer. So this is really a very important problem from a public health perspective. It's really translating into huge costs at the societal level, not only on medical care, but also in lost productivity and in many other ways. There is evidence that diets are becoming less healthy. Not only are we exercising less, but we are also eating worse. We're eating more of the wrong stuff. We are just not really meeting the dietary recommendations. About 25% of US adults meet dietary recommendations for fruits and vegetables. So 3 out of 4 are actually not eating enough of these nutrients. Per capita annual consumption of fats and oils, which we know are linked to an increase in obesity, are about 79 pounds a year. So that's huge. And we eat more often outside than we used to, okay? 49% of all the food expenditures are spent on foods that are prepared outside the home. That accounts for about 1/3 of total energy consumption. All of the energy that we consume with food is actually, a 1/3 of that is actually, it comes from food that we don't prepare at home anymore. The food in restaurants, which can be really good, but also tend to be more energy dense. They also tend to be larger portions, and that sometimes might compound the risk for developing overweight or obesity. So in the public health realm and among communities, there is really growing interest and evidence on the influence of the nutrition environment on eating practices and obesity rates. When we say the nutrition environment, what do we mean? We mean the places where we purchase food or where we prepare food, where we make decisions about food. And the rationale here, or the idea, is that depending on the things that we have available, where we see what's within reach, the price that it has, how appealing it looks, we're going to be more tempted to consume certain kinds of foods or others. It also matters who we see around us and what they're eating. And this is kind of interesting to have this conversation right at the time we're having lunch, right? So if we see others just indulging on salad, really healthy foods, that's also going to have somewhat of an influence on our own behavior. Maybe we're going to consider half of that. If we are in a restaurant, we see a menu and there is plenty of options that are healthy options, that will make it easier somehow for us to maybe choose one of those, as opposed to maybe having to ask, hey, could you substitute this? Could you give me this without that? Or do you have a low-fat version of this? That's always an additional barrier, right, that we're not really going to get on. Okay, so that's really the main motivation, besides other factors that I don't want to really take too much time on to talk about. So let's talk about the ANUSI project. As Beth said, this is assessing and improving the nutrition environment in Wisconsin communities. It's a study that is funded by the University of Wisconsin, the School of Medicine and Public Health, and within the school there is a program that's called Wisconsin Partnership Program. So the project duration has been from 2010 to 2013. We're really wrapping everything up at this point. It's a study that was conducted also as an ancillary or as an addendum of a large survey that you might or might not be aware of. That's called the Survey of Health of Wisconsin, SHOW for short. And that is a statewide survey that the University of Wisconsin is conducted on an annual basis. They collect all kinds of information about individuals who live in Wisconsin, their health status, and the conditions in which they live, and the characteristics of the communities in which they live. So it's a great repository of data to really monitor how we are doing in terms of health. and health behaviors here in Wisconsin. The particular focus for our project for a new C was to really look at the nutrition environment. So just as show collects data on the individuals and their health status, they collect blood samples, and they see how they're doing in terms of a number of potential diseases. They also ask for things like their diet, their exercise, their medical history. But we don't know enough about where people live and what's available for people. And that, as we were saying, might have an important influence on their diet and the decisions that they make about food, right? So a new C added that piece. We went to the communities where the show respondents live, and we collected data from all the restaurants and stores that were located within a certain distance from the households of these individuals. And so that way we are able to link individual level data to community level data and see, is there an association? Do people who live in areas where there aren't supermarkets or grocery stores, do they tend to eat worse diets? And could that be because they don't really have access to this kind of food outlets? Another component, the most important for today's talk, of the ANUSI project is this pilot intervention evaluation. And that's really where Waupaca Eating Smart comes in. And we're going to talk about WES. I want to take a moment to describe the ANUSI partners. First and foremost, NEWACT, our Waupaca County Nutrition and Activity Coalition. We have also collaborated with Portage County CAN, another, sibling, another kind of coalition that also works on obesity prevention topics. The Wisconsin Partnership for Activity and Nutrition, a statewide coalition of coalitions, if you will, has also been a part of our project. We've had collaboration from the Department of Health Services at the state of Wisconsin. The show, as I mentioned, the Wisconsin Restaurant Association and the Wisconsin Grocers Association have been also very helpful and offered consulting when necessary for the project. Health First Wisconsin, UW School of Medicine, and Wisconsin Sports Foundation. So I'm probably missing somebody, but as you can see, it's a huge collaborative effort. Okay, so the specific aims were, first of all, we wanted to document the strengths and the weaknesses of the nutrition or the food environment in Wisconsin. We wanted to see which areas are doing better, which areas are doing worse, and what do individuals in Wisconsin have available in the places where they live when it comes to food options. We wanted to examine the association between those food options and availability and the quality of their diets. And most importantly for today's talk, we wanted to develop and test a pilot intervention to improve the food environment in Wisconsin communities. This is really what we're going to be talking about today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background for how this fits within the overall larger project. Okay, so Josie, you want to talk a little bit about the study design? I'm going to let Josie, who has been our project manager for the second half of the project and a phenomenal champion in all of this effort, to talk with you about the different aspects of this study and how we went about the evaluation.
Good. Can everybody hear me? All right. So I'm going to talk a little about the study design, as Anna talked about. So we partnered with 2 Wisconsin coalitions. So we wanted to find 2 coalitions that were really active in their community and that would be able to take on this project. So we reached out to Waupaca County NEWACT and Portage County CAN. And out of these 2 coalitions, we flipped a coin to see which is going to be the intervention community where we are going to do this project, and which community we would look at for a comparison so that we could really determine how this made a difference. So as you know, Waupaca won the coin flip, and we did a large planning process, and eventually the research period of WES was 10 months long, and this was the period over which we were going to evaluate the program. As you know, it's still going on today, but this period was really how we were going to tell what difference it made and collect some data. We ended up working with 7 restaurants and 2 stores here in Waupaca, and we partnered with 7 restaurants and 2 stores in Stevens Point to be a comparison so we could determine how it made a difference. What? Okay, so this, as I mentioned, there was a planning process. First, we identified health behavior outcomes. So we wanted to look at obesity. We identified the target audience, which was community members in Waupaca, and we've more focused on adults in this community. There was a large formative assessment process. So what happened is that we did some statewide surveys and focus groups and interviews. So we talked to customers to see what they were looking for, what they thought about when they went shopping at grocery stores, what went through their minds at restaurants, what they were looking for, how they decided what to eat. And we conducted focus groups with owners at restaurants and stores to see what was it really like to be in these restaurants and stores and what were they dealing with. As a result of that, we determined the intervention strategies, what we wanted to do that would make a difference, and that was feasible, that would appeal to customers, that owners would be happy to try out. And then once we had determined those, we looked at how to evaluate them. Do you want to talk about the formative assessment? I'm going to turn it back over to Anna to talk about the formative research.
Thank you, Josie.
Sorry, that's the noise. All right, so I'll browse through this relatively quickly because I want to give Bev enough time to talk about West, actually what it looked like. But I want to share a little bit with you how we went about really informing ourselves of what might work, what might be feasible for the intervention. So as Josie said, we did interviews and focus groups, which as you might know are just like interviews, but just not with one people, with a group of people, okay, where everybody talks and interacts. And we included on those interviews and focus groups about 20 owners or managers of restaurants from different areas in Wisconsin, 21 food store owners or managers, and we did 6 focus groups with consumers with about 6 to 8 participants on each of the focus groups. We, of course, also reviewed the literature and the foods and the information available, especially work that others had done in communities, in similar communities, to try to promote healthy eating. So the key findings were that, the restaurants and the food stores, they were saying, well, we really go with what consumers want. That's really what drives us. And so we're happy to offer things as long as we think that the consumers are going to respond to those offerings. Because after all, this is a business, and we are, as any business, driven by what consumers want to buy. They recognize that there are some trends going on. The consumers are sort of choosing healthier foods now than they used to perhaps a few years ago. There's a slow trend towards healthier eating, but still very slow, very tiny. Restaurants are reluctant to change. They said, you know, we have our menus, we have our offerings, and that's what our patrons expect. We cannot really change things overnight, or else they might just go elsewhere. So that was a particular barrier that we needed to make sure we worked around. They also pointed that when people celebrate at restaurants, they have little motivation to eat healthily, right? So they said, we think lunch is probably a better time. People might be more willing to go with healthy options at that time, but dinner time or weekends when people might be celebrating something, they feel like they want to indulge, and they're not going to be thinking healthy. They're going to be thinking tasty or value, right? In the food stores, they said they were willing to experiment. They really are all about family meals. They want people to eat at home and prepare more of the foods that they eat. So that was fine with them. They also recognized that patrons are value-driven, and they pointed at the cost of healthy foods as one important barrier. As we know, produce veggies and vegetables are not as inexpensive as we would like them to be in order to promote them more widely. Here in Waupaca, NEWACT conducted some community surveys to really see what the customers, the community residents want when they go out to dine out or in food stores. So they ask what factors influence what you order for yourself and your children. And as you can see here, health was actually a pretty common factor that people would mention. So they said for adults, when they order for themselves, about 56% said health is one thing I consider a healthy component. And when it's for my children, about 68% said I really think about how healthy the food is. So that was an important finding. We also asked them how satisfied they were with the veggies and fruits that were available in local restaurants. And see, this is not at all, and all the way to a great deal. So most people were around here, somewhat satisfied. But there is definitely room for improvement, right? We also asked if restaurants labeled or marked somehow the healthy items in their menus and promoted those items, how likely would you be to order this? You think that you would go for them if you saw them in a menu? And so most people said yes, quite a bit or a great deal. Okay, so that was encouraging. So that was part of the feedback that we brought back to the restaurants. We said, look, this is what community residents are saying. So they consider health an important component. They are not quite satisfied with the options right now available, and they say they're likely to order things if they see them promoted as healthy or fresh. So we identified a number of strategies. For restaurants, we decided that it would make sense to promote the healthy items that they already had in their menus without calling them healthy, okay? Because that's something we learned from other projects that had implemented a similar intervention. And they said, call it fresh. Fresh sounds good. People like fresh or nutritious, or there are other terms you might use, but if you use the word healthy, sometimes people are going to think, oh, it's not going to taste good. So that's what we did. Restaurants were open to requests for healthier substitutions, and they were happy to encourage customers that if they wanted, they were happy to make any changes, go with something that would meet their dietary preferences. And point of purchase, that's what this POP thing is here, point of purchase nutrition information. What that means is information that is provided at the point where people are making decisions about their food. So, for instance, if you're sitting on a table and you have a menu or a table tent or a menu in front of you, that's a point of purchase because it's at the point where you're deciding what you want to order, right? So this should be simple. Restaurants wanted help, and they said, look, you can help me if you give me some materials that match with my style and the things that I already have. I'd be happy with that, but I'm not going to do that myself. We have a lot of work. We have so many other things to worry about. We're not going to change our materials. So we decided to help with that. As for the food stores, patrons want price promotion.
The fortune to work with one franchise restaurant and a fast food restaurant that has other businesses in other places, and we thought that was a nice challenge for us because they are working within, instead of independently owned where you can change up things a little more easily, this is they have to work with the constraints of all the other stores. We worked on two main strategies for this. One of them is that we really wanted to promote the fruits and vegetables. We didn't cover the whole gamut of salt and sugar and fat and everything. So we wanted to just kind of look at a couple different things. So in order to be a WES-approved meal, whether it was in the restaurant or store, the meal itself had to have a cup of fruits or vegetables with it, and it did have to be the 700 calories or less. And that made it a consistent thing whether you went from one WES restaurant to another or in the grocery store. You always knew if it was WES promoted, it had that criteria. If they just did a WES approved side, like if you went to a restaurant and just wanted the side, it would be 300 calories or less, and it had the half a cup of the fruits or vegetables. We also, again, this is in the restaurants, looked at labeling things to make it a little bit easier. Sometimes you look at this wonderful big menu and you're like, I don't know, I'm a little overwhelmed here. And promoting and marketing things a little bit better. Some of the items, and you have a chance to look at some things afterwards at the back, but that we offered to the restaurants to display so that people could see, were the window clings. So again, that was the first thing that we hope that you will see in our West Approved restaurants is as soon as you walk up to it right in the door, the window is our little window cling indicating they are a participating restaurant. But other signage they could pick and choose from, whether it was a menu insert that we helped create, it was a table tent that had some information in. We did work with staff that we helped train the staff so that they understood kind of what we were trying to do, and they would better be able to promote it to the people coming in. We did try to encourage the locally grown fruits and vegetables. That's something that we do have a community garden for those of you from Waupaca, and either making use of that or some of our other wonderful farmers that we have in the area. We encourage the menu changes if they wanted to look at, okay, I always make this sandwich, but maybe I'll be willing to do the lower fat mayonnaise instead of the regular mayonnaise, or having a dressing on the side. A lot of times when it's right on it, we're going to eat it all up. But if you can add it on the side, maybe you won't use quite as much. And then the bundled meals are our favorite little thing. That's what you'll see as we come up in some of our materials in the menu insert is we bundled an entree or protein item with their fruits and vegetables. Here is one of our, which hopefully you can see pretty well, is one of the menu inserts that was created. And what was said before, we didn't ask these people and expect our businesses to start from scratch and create this whole new thing from us. That is a lot of work. It was easy enough with all of them to be able to work with what they already had and say, maybe you could just do a different side. Maybe instead of a pasta salad where you're heavy on starch, you could get those fruits and vegetables in. And it was very easy. Everybody had lots of good things to work with. Usually we had just a few items. Some of them, this particular restaurant had a few more items that we could work with, ranging the gamut from a sandwich to a whole entree to a salad. And you should still be able to see these today if you go to some of our restaurants. If you don't know all our participating restaurants, we do have T-Dubs downtown and Cronies downtown. We do have Sisters Deli out by the courthouse. We have the Waupaca Woods Mall. We have the Waupaca Ale House. And two of the original members that are no longer with us, we had Culver's in town, and we did have Weasel's downtown. We have since added a new one. We have added Secret Garden Cafe, so look for them as well. This is an example of the table tent, because sometimes people might even look at that menu insert and say, I don't know if I'm quite ready to jump in and have this lovely sounding salad or something like that. So this just kind of, again, gives some ideas that seem very common sense, but sometimes it's just, did you ever think that you could just, instead of, even if it says, burger and fries or sandwich and fries, that you could say, would it be okay if I got a salad instead? And already you're getting a better side, and you're cutting down on a lot of the calories and the sodium in that, or a different beverage choice. So these were on the tables to just give people ideas of different ways. We also really tried to encourage, if you're going to get a large entree, some of our restaurants are known for their very generous servings. Take half of it home. Why not enjoy it the next day as well? This is an example. We were very fortunate to work with a national franchise, and with Culver's, they allowed us to co-brand. So what you'll find is some information on Waupaca Eating Smart, as well as their Culver's. They have mindful choice little combinations, but they allowed us again to pair their existing sandwiches with a vegetable, a salad, or a soup that had more vegetables in it. So it gives you an idea too. Again, just because the sign shows a a chicken sandwich with fries doesn't mean that's the only thing you can always get. You can ask, can I substitute a vegetable or something, and get a little bit more nutritious option. Again, this was our co-branding, and so this kind of just explained in word form the different types of options that you could get, and very easy to work, even within their menu, to find some fruit or vegetable options that would meet our criteria. All again at the bottom have the 700 calories and have the cup of fruits or vegetables, and then we did have the suggestion for the lower calorie drinks, so you're not, if you chose to have a shake or you chose to have a regular soda, you just knew that you were going outside the 700 calories. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do it, but it just kind of gave you some extra information. In stores, we did have 2 grocery stores in town that were willing to work with us, and we still use those same strategies of the bundled meals that I talked about with the restaurants, but we did it a little bit differently in stores because obviously they don't have an actual menu, but we tried to promote, again, the healthy family meals. We grouped together different entrees and sides, which we did as a little recipe sheet. We had a man display in there. I don't know if anybody here was fortunate enough to go down when we have some of our deli samplings, but both Piggly Wiggly and Pick and Save made some of our West-approved side salads, and then we offered them as a demonstration that you could come and you could try it out ahead of time. We had the recipes available. It was something that you could then pick up the items and go home and make it for your family and know that you're getting a healthier side. We also did a lot of promotion and marketing, you know, whether it was the signage, and we'll have some examples of that too. Piggly Wiggly, we did do a resource binder so that you would know what to do with the cabbage or the kale or the okra or the, you know, some of the ones that a lot of us aren't as familiar with. They had very similar stuff to work with that the restaurants did. They have the window cling, you'll see that up. Some of their signage is in the form of the point of purchase signs in the produce department. We do have the little recipes. They're still available in the deli area, which would be for the healthy entree or the side. We did for a while do a bag stuffer. Just, you know, if you saw those in the bottom of your bag, it might say, do you have a picky eater at home? Giving you some ideas of how you can get some extra veggies in, or debunking some of the myths of, you know, why I can't do more vegetables because they're going to spoil, and it might give you some ideas on how to get by that. We also had a little West Gazette for both the restaurant and the stores, so just a little newsletter we shared with the business owners on, you know, what's going on, different things that they could try to do. This is Heidi. She was our friendly person that was out there if anybody, again, was out for the samplings in the stores. And this was up at Piggly Wiggly, and she did, I don't know, that was our apple slaw salad that we did. And it just gave people, again, an option to hear what is Waupaca Eating Smart all about. Give it a try. If you liked it, you could take the recipe home. We did that several times during the course of our, when we were doing our intervention period. It was both in Piggly Wiggly and in Pick and Save. And again, just kind of chatting with people. This is what we're talking about as the POP, or the point of purchase sign. And next time you head to one of the grocery stores, look and see if you can find them. They usually are hanging right by the Honeycrisp apples, or right by the asparagus, or right by some of the other produce. And it just gives you a couple ideas of offhand, okay, well, apples, most of us know what to do with, but now I've got that kale, and what do I really do with it? I don't even know how to prepare it. So just off the bat, it'll give you some different ideas of how to prepare it. And here they are, some of them up there already. This is an example of our little recipe sheet. Like I said, they're still in the deli. There are some for just the sides, and then there's the pairings with like a a chicken entree or a beef entree or a fish entree, and it gives you the whole how to make it. Initially we had where you could find it in the store, go down aisle 2 for this and aisle 3 for that. That got a little cumbersome, but at least you know exactly what you need to get if you want to go home and make that particular item. And this is their version of a table tent. This is either in the deli area or look around the store and see if you can find it. Sometimes they kind of, where's Waldo? They kind of move around the store. But again, it just kind of explains a little bit about what WES is and that you can pick up those shopping tips or healthy recipes to help you, just kind of mix in with your usual stuff at home. Anybody see this around town or see any of the articles in the paper when this ran? Jim King is a local celebrity, as I like to call him, and he was our secret eater, shall we say. We used this was an actual evidence-based strategy that was used in another state in order to promote the program. And what we had him do is go to one of our participating restaurants. We had him do it actually twice during the course of our intervention. And he would order one of the WES-approved items. And he wasn't there as a food critic. He wasn't there to go and say, oh, I really liked it, I really hated it, you could have done this or that. His whole purpose was to go and to write about how easy it was if you were dining out to find something that was not only healthy, but really good tasting. So if you saw any of his articles, he would say, here I am eating at T-Dubs or the Ale House, and I ordered whatever it was, and I surprisingly found out it was really good. You can, have it be tasty and healthy at the same time. And just how easy it is to find on the menu without having to look for certain symbols or ask for certain ways things were prepared. And again, he did a number of articles for our local paper and just kind of showed, what's out there and what you can try that is WES approved. He's no longer doing that, but we hope it gave people a little idea of how you can do this yourself. This is our blog site, which I can't take any credit for. Actually, it was, Norma Jean, another one of our colleagues at Madison, put together. But you can, if you're internet savvy, unlike me, you can go to our blog site and we have all sorts of information as far as our recipes, different articles, different information, who's involved, community. You can submit your own healthy community recipe if you like. Lots of good information on there. We also have a companion Facebook site where people can leave some comments on what's going on. Or share some information on there. And again, you just look for Waupaca Eating Smart on if you do the Facebook thing. And this is one of our articles. We did do a number of articles. Waupaca County Post was wonderful in really sharing a lot of our information out there so that people knew during the course of the whole project where we were at, what we were doing. This is the beginning where we first launched it and went through a lot of the stuff that Anna described in the beginning about why we are doing this program. So we haven't put anything in recently, but they were a wonderful partner in helping us promote the program. I believe that. Now I can turn it over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about how we evaluated this program. So we really wanted to see how it made a difference. Like I said before, we looked at a number of different measures before and after the program, both here in Waupaca and in Stevens Point. So as you can see, we looked at the environment. There's kind of a checklist tool to see what sorts of signs or in a certain restaurant or grocery store that may promote healthy eating, what sorts of things are available. So basically the environment, we surveyed customers and owners. So these two things were done before and after. And then we looked at sales data at a number of time points. And Bev and Ann went into these restaurants and grocery stores and kind of checked off what certain strategies were in place, what signs were up, and what it looked like. So you'll be hearing more about these things later. This was just kind of a West by the numbers. These first 4 items are in restaurants. So you can see we created overall 14 menu inserts, 2 table tents, 38 West approved items were identified and promoted, and we had 2 newsletters. For stores, there were 10 recipes for entrees, 10 for side dishes. We did a total of 9 displays with samples, 5 sets of bag stuffers, 15 of the point of purchase fruit and vegetable signs, 2 newsletters, and then in the community here at the bottom you can see we had 6 newspaper articles that were more general, and then 14 Jim King articles. This graph shows the number of strategies that were implemented in restaurants. So here each line is a restaurant, and you could say this was before West, in the middle, and after. And you can see these are the number of strategies. So they started out with 0 strategies. In the middle they had about 8.5, and by the end it was about 7.5 on average. So this means like putting up the window cling, or they had a menu insert, they had a West bundled meal. So this is really great that these things actually were implemented, and they did about 8.5 out of 11. That's a really good number of changes that they tried to do. And in stores, you can see a similar story, before, middle, and after. Both of the stores implemented 13 out of 18 different little strategies in the middle, and maintained most of these throughout the intervention. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna.
Just trying to keep your attention. All right, so thank you, Josie. So that's West by the numbers, the things we did and the strategies that happen inside the restaurants and the stores. So with this slide, what you see is talking about that checklist that Josie was mentioning that looks for changes in the environment of the restaurants or the stores. We looked at changes in Waupaca, and I will show you changes in our comparison community in a moment. But this is Waupaca for now. So these are each of the 7 restaurants that were participating during the 10-month trial pilot period. And so these are the scores that they had before we launched West, and after, okay? The lighter, the yellow bars are after for each restaurant. So you can see one restaurant went from 15 to 13. So that changed it minimally, actually a little bit towards down, meaning the environment was slightly worse after West. But that was kind of the exception, because if you look at the other restaurants, they had phenomenal improvements. So from 3 to 19, 19 to 29, this one changed a little bit less, but in general, there was an overall trend to go up. The average pre-score was 14, and the average at the end of the 10-month period was 22. So it was a pretty important change, meaning the nutrition environment got better according to this instrument that we used after West. Yes. We did. Yeah, it was pretty standardized. Then people had to go through a thorough training to apply that instrument. But thanks for your question. And so this is the comparison community. What you see here is a slightly, it's a pretty different story. What you see is that the changes went actually on the opposite direction for most restaurants, okay? So the change overall was actually no change. On average, before West, they had about 15.7, afterwards 15.9. So as expected, things didn't really change much in terms of the nutrition environment in the comparison community, because they didn't have any similar intervention trying to make changes on that area. Now this is for the stores, and it's a little bit of a different story here. The stores, the nutrition environment actually got a little bit worse overall. And there's an explanation for this. If you look at the things that this instrument assesses, it looks for availability. Are healthy produce present in the store? What is the quality? And what is the price? That is how this instrument is designed, and it's the only one we identified that looked at the food environment. In reality, we didn't really target the availability. These grocery stores already had produce. What we were trying to do was to promote it, to make it more visible for people. So we didn't actually alter the availability or the quality, and definitely we didn't alter the price. So we saw things happening in the stores that were just not reflected with this instrument that we use. So actually changes were 38 to 34 in Waupaca, 37 to 35. So very small changes, probably random changes. Okay, another side of our evaluation, another component, as Josie described before, were the consumer surveys among exiting restaurant customers. We asked, have you ever heard of WES or Waupaca Eating Smart? And actually, about half of the customers said they had. So there was good exposure at the community level. For comparison, in Stevens Point, we asked the same question just to see if people would say yes anyhow. And no, we had very few people there, about 9%, who might have visited Waupaca or somehow heard of it. How many recognize the logo? So we showed them and we asked, have you ever seen this logo, this fork that you saw in previous slides? So 61% said yes, they had seen that before. And for comparison, only 6% of customers said so in Stevens Point. And this is different places where people might have seen the logo or heard of WES. So in printed media, about 21%, in local restaurants, half of the customers. For behavior and perception. So we asked if they had seen the logo actually inside the restaurant, in a local restaurant in Waupaca. So half of them said yes. And when we asked, how about this restaurant that you just exited from? And about 35% reported having seen the logo in that particular restaurant. So you're saying that about 1 in 3 customers that were eating in that restaurant had some level of exposure, they noticed. How easy to understand were the materials? So for those who said they had seen them, we asked, okay, what you saw that was part of WES, would you say it was not at all easy to understand or a great deal on a scale from 1 to 5? And the average was 4.1, so that's pretty good. That's a pretty good level of understanding. How appealing were these materials? Again, on a scale from 1 to 5, the average was 3.3, so generally on the positive side. And then we asked, okay, but did you order any of the items that you saw being promoted as part of WES? And almost half of the customers said they had ordered one of those items, among those who reported that they had seen the logo, okay? So we're talking about a small percentage in the end, but nonetheless, a fraction of the customers said they had seen it and they had ordered it. We also ask consumers at the beginning of the survey, are you aware of any local healthy eating campaign here in your community? And so this is what we saw for Waupaca. Before WES, only 18% said they were aware of something going on that promoted healthy foods. And at the end of WES, or at the end of the study period, 29% said so. In Stevens Point, the direction of the change was the opposite. But you have to notice that overall, more people in Stevens Point talked about the promotion of healthy eating at the community level. So keep that in mind, because I think that is important, and it explains some of the things I'm going to present in a moment. How satisfied are you with fruits and vegetable choices in your community? So we asked the customers in the restaurants as they were exiting in Waupaca before and after. And so the level of satisfaction went up from 2.4 to 2.8. Again, on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 would be most satisfied. In Stevens Point, we also saw a similar improvement. Okay? And in general, the satisfaction was even slightly greater on the whole. So the post measures were better for both communities, and it was no really different with or without WES. How satisfied are you with low-calorie choices? here we see a similar pattern. The scores went up, so people were more satisfied at the end of the study period in Waupaca, but so were they in Stevens Point. Did you order one of the promoted items? So before Wes, we asked if they had seen anything promoting healthy eating in the restaurant and had they ordered it. And then after Wes, after the study period, so this went up 31 to 37%, and actually in Stevens Point it went down. So somehow we did better there. But the differences weren't big enough to say this is really significant. Now we turn it to stores and consumer exposure here. So are you aware of local healthy eating? The exposure went up from 25 to 48% in Waupaca. So that was really good improvement at the store level. And they also had relatively good levels in Stevens Point. So definitely people are working on healthy eating programs in that community as well. Have you ever heard of Wes? Of course, more people in Waupaca, 51%, similar to the restaurants, had heard of Wes. Only 10% in Stevens Point had heard of that particular program, which makes sense, right? Wes was not taking place in Stevens Point. Almost 60% of the patrons, of the consumers in the supermarkets recognized the logo, and they had seen it in printed media, in local restaurants, in food stores. So. Sure.
Do you think, well, because West is Waupaca focused, that if it said Stevens Point, you know, like SES, would it have a bigger impact in Stevens Point?
Well, in Stevens Point, we didn't really do any of these strategies that we talked about. Nothing of that happened there. However, they have their own programs. They have farm-to-school initiatives. They have some other kind of efforts that go on sort of like the same direction, only not as cool as West, I would say. Does that answer your question? So there wasn't really anything in Stevens Point that had the name Waupaca Eating Smart. But we asked people, because these communities are not too far apart, and we thought maybe some of the Stevens Point residents come to Waupaca for different reasons. They dine in these restaurants or go to these stores. Okay, aware of local healthy eating also improved quite a bit in the stores for Waupaca, and it improved, but less so in Stevens Point. So that was something that was significantly better in Waupaca. And then how healthy was the food that you purchased today? Again, on a scale, in this case, from 0 to 4. Okay, 4 is most healthy, a great deal. It went up from 2.2 to 2.6, so that's a significant change. And in Stevens Point, it changed minimally, 2.5, 2.6. So this indicated that the improvement had been greater in Waupaca as we intended. Satisfaction went up, satisfaction with promotion of veggies and fruits, satisfaction with low-calorie choices also got significantly better. And the perceptions of the owners in both the restaurants and the stores changed positively. So at first, they might have thought that this kind of effort would translate into additional costs for them or waste of foods. And what we actually saw is that at the end of the study period, on a 0 to 4 scale, most of the owners of the restaurants agreed that waste were not costly, it was not wasteful, it could potentially increase sales, did not take much time, was valued by customers, and did not take too much space. On a scale from 0 to 4, the scores were more on towards the 4 than towards the 0. And similarly for stores, the scores were actually even a little better for stores. So overall, satisfaction among owners was, again, on the positive side, closer to 4 than 0 on this 0 to 4 scale, and likelihood to continue. So, Bev, would you like to talk a little bit about sustainability and what's going to happen? Yep.
want to briefly say that we still have Wes in most of our, both in our two stores and in most of our original restaurants. Plus, we have added one, and we are looking at potentially adding more. Just the partnerships that were formed, the resources that we are able to bring to them, we still are available to do this. So this was all about sustainability from the start. We didn't intend this to be a one-shot thing and then we were going to end. So we continue to go in and look at the stores and the restaurants, see if they need any updating on their menus or some of the signage. So continue to look for those things around town.
Summary then, with all the evaluation that we did, what we might say is on different dimensions, how did West do? So in terms of reaching customers and having exposure, we did good because a great percentage of patrons knew about West. In terms of effectiveness, did we change the environment in restaurants? We did, and it sounds like it looks like it went in the right direction. Did we change the environment in the stores? Not so much, but somehow we made it more visible for customers, even if that was not reflected in the instrument. Did we change the behavior? Did people actually order more of the healthy foods? We have some evidence of improvement in satisfaction with fruits and vegetables, but we have no evidence of impact on sales. That's really a summary of what we saw with effectiveness. We saw good adoption by most restaurants that we approached. They jumped in and they were willing to participate in West. The level of implementation was very good, as you saw with the level of strategies that were implemented was pretty high. And the maintenance, as per what Bev just said, sustainability seems to be also going well, and the restaurants, most of them continue being engaged. For the stores is basically, I just summarized for both, for restaurants and stores. Two more things. One is the toolkits we have worked closely with the Department of Health Services and others to develop two toolkits for other communities that might want to go on with similar efforts to promote healthy eating among their residents. And these are around, I think Bev is going to allow you to take a look at them. These are drafts. They're going to be published and finalized probably in a matter of 2-3 weeks from now. And so these are going to be resources available to communities. And there are lessons and tips and help for how do you go and plan this kind of program in your community. And the next steps, we're completing our report that we need to submit to our final agency. We want to disseminate the findings. This is one example where we are trying to go back to the community and other interested stakeholders. And we would like to continue identifying strategies to sustain and expand West. And we hope to continue doing additional studies so we can better document what impact these kind of initiatives are having. So hopefully we can continue partnering with you guys and Waupaca and other communities in Wisconsin to continue collecting data and learning more about how we can keep our communities healthier and how we can reduce obesity here in Wisconsin. Long list of acknowledgements, and we're happy to take questions or to what is next in the program.
No, it didn't. There was no. That was one of the advantages that we said right off, is that there was no cost incurred by them unless they wanted to purchase something different.
I would think they benefited from the advertising on
That was one of the benefits, is being able to have that. Yes, and we still will do. We aren't doing the Jim King promotion, but we'll continue to do. If we bring a new West restaurant or a store on board, we will put information in the paper. So the promotion goes on. Yes. That I think that's the nature of the game right now. Until people realize, it's always like the latest thing that comes out tends to be pricier. I mean, I can't speak a whole lot towards marketing and that. I'm not in marketing, but it seems that way. But, you know, like some people are doing is you price the healthier things less, and that as an incentive to purchase that. I know we've seen that in vending machines, and then you do the less healthy things pricier, so that's a disincentive to get those. So it's going to be customer driven too. You know, if people are asking for it, if you go into a store or restaurant and say, can I have a steamed vegetable instead of the fries, you know, and they can get it from their vendor and get to the point where it is more cost effective, we hope that the price will be better. Yes?
We haven't completed those analyses yet. We're working on that actually for our final report. So that's going to be coming up quickly. That might be another lunch and learn.
I did want to share some local. We have two of our business representatives here, Scott from Piggly Wiggly in town and Shan is from T-Dubs, and they're both participating West businesses, to just say a couple words about what it was like to have Wes in their store, any particular successes or anything. So Scott? Sorry. I should have given this to you. Sorry, I'm going to have to give this to you, Scott.
All right, can you hear me now? Anyway, my business is all about increasing sales. I think that the signage throughout the store prompts people to think about eating healthier, which in turn gets them to buy things that they normally wouldn't buy when they're in the grocery store. Bev talked about the binder in the produce department. That also has been an asset for a person like me, and I basically live on burgers and pizzas. I hate to say that. It offers different choices and options for tasty, healthy meal items. Wes has also partnered with my deli manager, again, as Bev talked about, and offered a couple of different sampling sessions at Wes Recipes. Sessions of Wes Recipes. These demos went over very well, and the recipes are available to the customers at the deli department. I hope to do more of those going forward. Thank you.
Well, I'm Shan Spears. I'm one of the partners at T-Dubs. I worked very closely with Ann Menzies with the WES project. We had several of our regular menu items that she then paired. Our number one selling item is our Irish Amber salmon, and that was something that fell into the program criteria, and just by pairing it with the side salad, which is one of our regular choices. So we found that it was very easy to implement. The signage that they brought in made it easy for our customers to be able to find things. We have daily specials, and the WES menu is printed on the opposite side of that, so people can see it very, very easily. They were wonderful to work with, and I think it's been a benefit to our restaurant and to the community.
Thank you so much. So please go check this out. Again, it's still going to be ongoing, and we hope to keep it going. We did provide some information, some written materials that were kind of like the summaries of what was all spoken today. If you didn't get one, there's some extra copies in the back, and there are some copies of those two toolkits that Anna talked about. They aren't meant to be taken home because, again, they're just drafts. But if you want to look through, it just would help other communities. There isn't the funding associated with it, obviously, that we had the fortune to work with, but at least it gives you ideas of how to approach people and how to get them on board and some of the different strategies. Yes, another question?
Yeah, I wonder, I've noticed the price of candy bars at checkout go up the last couple of years. Can I blame you for that?
I hope so. I can't speak to that, but on a similar note, I know that Scott has a healthy checkout aisle up at Piggly Wiggly that, does have some reasonably priced good things to offer. But
Which aisle is that, Belle?
it's there is a sign, I believe, saying, what does it say, Connie? Well, we thank you all for coming. We also have, if anybody would like to stay around, we do have our New Act Coalition, just a short general membership meeting. You're welcome to stay. But other than that, unless anybody has any other questions, thank you so much for coming.
Grab the microphone for a bit. A couple of library announcements. We do have our next month's Lunch and Learn. It is the 10th of December, and we're having Building the Alaska Highway, so it's a history lesson for you. You can register online or at the desk. Also, this Saturday is International Games Day, and we're inviting you to come to the library and play games. So if you have a bridge group or a bunch of Scrabble buddies, or you play Bunko, bring all of that to the library and we'll provide a place for you to do it. So hopefully you'll take advantage of those two programs that are coming up at the library. Thank you so much for coming, and another hand of applause for our presenters, please.